10 hours. That's how long Grace had to survive in a negative 50-degree freezer. 8 months pregnant with twins, locked inside by the one person who had promised to protect her forever, her husband. But this isn't just a story about betrayal. It's about what happened when Derek Bennett made one critical mistake. He underestimated his wife, and he forgot about his billionaire enemy, the man he'd destroyed 7 years earlier, the man who happened to be working late 3 buildings away. What Derek planned as the perfect murder became the beginning of his own destruction. Because Grace didn't just survive that freezer. She delivered 2 babies alone, kept them alive in impossible conditions. And when rescue came, it came from the last person Derek ever wanted involved in his life. This is the story of the coldest night that forged the strongest woman. And trust me, you won't believe what happens next. The metal door slammed shut with a sound Grace would hear in nightmares for the rest of her life. The lock clicked, then silence. The kind of silence that screams. Grace Bennett stood in the industrial freezer, her breath already turning to mist. The digital display on the wall read negative 50 degrees Fahrenheit. Her light maternity dress provided no protection. The cold bit through the thin fabric immediately. "Derek?" her voice echoed off steel swall. "This isn't funny." No answer. She moved toward the door. The handle wouldn't budge. She tried again. Pull, pull, pull. The same desperate motion people make when checking a locked door, knowing it won't open but unable to stop trying. Her hands shook. Not from cold yet, from something worse. Recognition. Derek's voice crackled through the intercom speaker. "I'm sorry, Grace. I really am." She pressed her palm against the frozen door. "Let me out, please. The babies." "But the life insurance pays triple for accidental death." His voice stayed calm, too calm. "And you were never supposed to be here this late." Grace's knees weakened. 8 months pregnant with twins, standing in a freezer set to negative 50 degrees. Her husband's voice explaining why he was killing her. "You planned this," she whispered. "The late-night call was genius, wasn't it? Come help me with inventory. Bring no one. Leave your phone in the car so it doesn't get damaged by the cold." He almost sounded proud. "Every word you believed." Grace's throat tightened. 5 years of marriage. Every kiss had been a calculation. Every "I love you" was him checking if the policy was still active. "Derek, please, think about your children." "I am thinking about them." The intercom crackled. $2 million thinks about them very well. Much better than a pharmaceutical manager's salary with $400,000 in gambling debts. The intercom went silent. Grace pounded on the door. "Derek! Derek! Come back!" Nothing. She was alone. The lights were motion activated. She realized this with sudden terror. If she stopped moving, darkness would swallow everything. And in negative 50 degrees, stopping meant dying faster. Grace forced herself to think, to breathe. The air burned her lungs. Each breath felt like swallowing knives. She wore a light blue maternity dress, a thin cardigan, flat shoes, nothing designed for survival. Derek had planned that too. He'd suggested the dress that morning. "Wear something comfortable. You'll be sitting in the car, mostly." More lies, a trail of lies leading to this frozen tomb. The babies kicked, strong, urgent movements. They knew something was wrong. A mother always knows when her children are afraid. Grace knew they felt her fear. "Mama's here," she whispered to her belly. "Mama's not giving up." But the cold was relentless. It crept through her skin, into her bones. Her fingers already felt numb. She flexed them, curled them, kept the blood moving. Grace looked around the freezer. Shelves of pharmaceutical supplies, boxes of vaccines. Nothing helpful, nothing warm, nothing that could break through a steel door designed to withstand extreme temperatures. She shuffled her feet. Small steps. Movement generated heat. Not much, but enough to keep the lights on. Enough to keep her blood flowing a little longer. A contraction hit at minute 7. Grace gasped. Her hand went to her belly. No, not now, not here. It was too early. She was only 32 weeks pregnant. The babies needed more time. But her body didn't care about should or shouldn't. Her body was shutting down. And shutting down meant labor. The contraction passed. Grace breathed through it. She'd taken classes, read books, practiced breathing exercises with Derek sitting beside her. Derek, who was right now driving away from the building, leaving her to die. She had one advantage he didn't know about. She was tougher than anyone suspected, tougher than she'd suspected. She just had to survive long enough to prove it. Grace began to pace, small circles, keeping her muscles engaged. The freezer was maybe 12 feet by 12 feet. Not much room, but enough to move, enough to fight. Her breath came in white clouds. She watched them dissipate, counted them. 1, 2, 3. Breathing meant living. As long as she could see her breath, she was alive. Another contraction. Stronger this time. 6 minutes after the first. Grace leaned against the frozen wall. Bad idea. The metal seared her skin through the dress. She jerked away, stood in the center of the space, alone, nowhere to sit, nowhere to rest. "I'm not dying in here," she said out loud. Her voice sounded strange, echoey, desperate. "My babies aren't dying in here." But the cold didn't care about determination. The cold was patient, methodical, inevitable. Grace's teeth began to chatter. She clenched her jaw, tried to stop it, couldn't. Her body was trying to generate heat through shivering. But shivering burned calories, burned energy, energy she needed to survive. She thought about the car, her phone sitting in the cup holder. Derek had been so concerned. "Don't bring it inside. The temperature changes will damage it." She'd believed him, trusted him, left her lifeline behind. No one knew she was here. Derek had asked her to come at 11 p.m. after everyone left. Just a quick check on inventory, 20 minutes tops. She'd told no one. Why would she? It was her husband, her partner, the father of her children. The father of her children was a murderer. Grace's mind struggled with this reality. How long had he planned it? When did he decide his wife and babies were worth less than money? When did he look at her growing belly and see dollar signs instead of his children? The questions hurt worse than the cold. Another contraction. 5 minutes after the last. Labor was progressing. Her body didn't know it was supposed to wait. Didn't know this was the worst possible time. The worst possible place. Grace removed her cardigan. Her fingers fumbled with the buttons. So cold. So numb. She finally got it off. Wrapped it around her belly. Better the babies stay warm 10 more minutes than her. Better they have some protection. The dress was sleeveless now. The cold attacked her arms, her shoulders, her neck. Every exposed inch of skin burned. She kept moving. Squat, stand, squat, stand. The motion helped with contractions, helped with circulation, helped her feel like she was doing something. Anything. "Mama's here," she told the babies again. "Mama's fighting. We're all going to meet each other on the other side of this door." But doubt crept in, dark and insidious. What if no one came? What if Derek's plan worked? What if she froze to death in this horrible place? What if her babies died without ever taking a breath? No, she couldn't think like that. Couldn't give up. Giving up meant Derek won, and Grace refused to let him win. Her water broke at minute 16. The amniotic fluid steamed in the frozen air. Grace watched it pool on the floor. Watched it begin to freeze. This was really happening. She was going into active labor. In a negative 50-degree freezer. Alone. Terror threatened to overwhelm her. She pushed it down, locked it away. Terror was a luxury she couldn't afford. Another contraction. 4 minutes after the last. Stronger. Longer. More painful. Grace squatted through it, breathed, counted 1, 2, 3, 4. The contraction peaked, held, finally released. She was going to have these babies, here now in this frozen hell, and somehow she had to keep them alive until someone found them. If anyone found them, anyone. Grace pushed that thought away too. Someone would come. Someone had to come. The universe couldn't be this cruel. But deep down, in a place she didn't want to acknowledge, she knew. She knew Derek had planned everything perfectly. Knew he'd thought of every detail. Knew he'd made sure no one would look for her until morning, until it was far too late. The cold was winning. She could feel it. Her thoughts were getting slower, fuzzier. Hypothermia was setting in. Her body was prioritizing. Keeping her core warm, keeping the babies warm, sacrificing her extremities. Her toes felt like blocks of ice. Her fingers barely responded to her commands, but she kept moving, kept shuffling, kept the lights on. In the darkness, she would die faster. In the darkness, she would give up. So she moved, one foot in front of the other, a terrible dance with death, another contraction. 3 minutes apart now, the babies were coming, ready or not, warm or frozen. They were coming. Grace had read about women giving birth in terrible conditions. War zones, natural disasters, car accidents. She'd never imagined she'd be one of them. Never imagined her husband would create the terrible condition. But what Grace didn't know, what she couldn't know as she labored alone in the freezing dark, was that someone was already looking for her. Someone who had every reason to hate Derek Bennett. Someone who would save her life and change it forever. The enemy at the door was closer than she thought. Grace's contractions hit every 3 minutes now. Regular, intense, unstoppable. She squatted against the wall, not touching it, just using it for balance. Her legs trembled from cold and exhaustion. How long had she been in here? Time felt strange, elastic, every minute stretched into an hour. I didn't survive his fist to die from his cowardice, she said out loud. Her voice cracked, but saying it made it real, made it true. I'm not dying in here. My babies aren't dying in here. The words hung in the frozen air, a promise, a prayer, a declaration of war against the cold and the man who'd put her here. Another contraction. Grace breathed through it, in through her nose, out through her mouth. The breathing exercises seemed ridiculous now. She'd practiced them in a warm, safe living room, with Derek timing her, Derek encouraging her, Derek pretending to care. Every memory was tainted now, every good moment poisoned by the truth. He'd been planning to kill her. For months, maybe since the day she told him about the twins. The contraction peaked. Grace groaned. The sound echoed off the metal walls. No one to hear, no one to help, just her and the babies in the killing cold. She had to push soon. Her body screamed for it. But where? How? There was nothing sterile here, nothing warm, nothing safe. Just frozen metal and pharmaceutical supplies and the growing certainty that she was going to die. No, stop. Don't think like that. Grace forced her mind to focus. What did she know? She knew labor. She knew birth. She'd read books, watched videos, talked to her doctor 100 times. Women had been giving birth for thousands of years. She could do this, but not in negative 50 degrees. No one could do this in negative 50 degrees. Her body disagreed. Her body didn't care about temperature or safety or the fact that this was impossible. Her body was shutting down from hypothermia, and a shutting down body went into crisis mode, which meant labor, which meant the babies were coming whether she was ready or not. Grace moved to the center of the freezer, squatted, tried to remember everything she'd learned. Support the head, clear the airway, keep the baby warm, stimulate breathing if necessary, keep the baby warm. In a negative 50-degree freezer, the cruel joke of it almost made her laugh. Almost. But laughing would waste energy, and energy was life. Another contraction. Stronger. The urge to push overwhelmed her. Her body took over. Instinct replaced thought. Grace pushed. The pain was incredible, searing, all-consuming. But pain meant she was still alive. Pain meant her body was working. Pain meant her babies were coming. She felt the baby crown, felt the ring of fire everyone talked about. Except the fire was ice. Everything was ice, her hands, her feet, her face. All ice. Come on, baby, she whispered. Come on, Mama's got you. Another push. The head emerged. Grace reached down with numb fingers, supported it, just like she'd learned, just like she'd practiced on a doll in a warm, comfortable birthing class. One more push. The baby slid into her frozen hands. A girl, tiny, blue, silent. Terror seized Grace's heart. No, breathe, baby, please breathe. She rubbed the baby's back, stimulated her, cleared her mouth with a finger she could barely feel. Come on, breathe. A tiny gasp, then a weak cry. Grace sobbed. The sound tore from her throat. Relief, joy, terror, All mixed together, her daughter was alive. Blue and hypothermic and too small, but alive. She had nothing to wrap her in, nothing but the cardigan she'd already wrapped around her own belly. Grace took it off, wrapped the tiny body, held her daughter against her chest, skin to skin, the only warmth she could offer. "Mama's here," Grace whispered. "Mama's got you. You're so strong, so perfect." But there was no time to bond, no time to marvel, because another contraction hit. Hard, fast, the second baby was coming. Grace couldn't do this, couldn't deliver another baby while holding the first, couldn't keep one warm while birthing the second. It was impossible. But impossible was all she had. She adjusted her position, held her daughter tight against her chest, felt the baby's weak heartbeat, felt her tiny breaths. She was alive. Grace had to keep her alive. Another push. Grace bore down, felt the second baby coming, faster than the first. Her body knew what to do now, knew the path. The second twin slid out with less resistance. A boy, also tiny, also blue, also silent. Grace had no hands left. One arm held her daughter, the other tried to support her son. She couldn't rub his back, couldn't stimulate him properly, could only hold him and pray, "Please, God, please, not like this." The baby gasped, coughed, made a thin, reedy cry. Alive. Both of them alive, against every odd, against all logic. Alive. Grace had no way to cut the umbilical cords, no clean scissors, no sterile anything. So she didn't. She held both babies against her chest, let the placentas deliver naturally, tried to share what little warmth remained in her body. She was going to die. She knew that now. Hypothermia had progressed too far. Her thoughts were fuzzy. Her body was shutting down. But maybe if she could keep the babies warm a little longer, maybe someone would come. Maybe her babies would survive, even if she didn't. Grace looked at her watch. Her vision was blurry. The numbers didn't make sense at first. She blinked, focused. 7:15 in the morning. The last time she'd looked had been 9 p.m. 10 hours. She'd been locked in this frozen hell for 10 hours. The babies came early because her body was shutting down. Because hypothermia triggered crisis labor. 10 hours. Derek had left her to freeze for 10 hours. Let her deliver their children alone. Let her suffer in ways she couldn't have imagined. All for money, all for $2 million. The cold was winning now. Grace could feel it taking her. Her vision dimmed at the edges. Her muscles stopped shivering. That was bad. She remembered reading that. When you stopped shivering, the end was close. Your body had given up trying to generate heat. She looked down at her babies. Two tiny faces, eyes closed, barely breathing. They looked like miniature dolls, unreal, too small, too fragile, too perfect. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Mama tried. Mama fought so hard." Her eyes closed. She couldn't keep them open anymore. So tired, so cold, so ready to stop fighting. But somewhere in a parking lot 3 buildings away, someone was about to notice something wrong. Someone who had every reason to hate Derek Bennett. Someone who would give Grace and her babies the chance they desperately needed. The lights in the freezer flickered. Grace's movements had slowed too much. Soon there would only be darkness. Soon there would only be 3 small bodies, frozen in time. But not yet. Not quite yet. Connor Hayes noticed the car at 11:47 p.m. A silver sedan, hazard lights blinking weakly, battery dying. He'd been working late again. Building an empire required sacrifice. His tech company, Hayes Tech Solutions, occupied the building 3 doors down from Bennett Pharmaceuticals. They shared a parking complex. Connor rarely paid attention to other cars. But the hazards caught his eye. They'd been blinking when he'd arrived 6 hours ago. Still blinking now. That was wrong. That was a problem. That was someone in trouble. Connor walked toward the car. His breath misted in the cold November air. Not -50, just normal Michigan November. Maybe 25 degrees. Cold enough. He peered into the car. A purse on the passenger seat. A phone in the cup holder. The phone screen lit up with notifications. Missed calls. Text messages. Someone was looking for this person. Connor tried the door. Locked. Of course, he looked at the license plate, ran it through his head. tried to remember. Then he saw the parking sticker. Bennett Pharmaceuticals, employee parking. A pregnant woman's car with hazard lights blinking for 6 hours. Person phone left behind. No sign of the driver. Every instinct Connor had screamed danger. He called building security. A board guard answered on the 4th ring. "This is Connor Hayes from Hayes Tech. There's an abandoned car in the lot with hazards on. Been here for hours. Pregnant woman's car. You need to check the Bennett building." The guard sighed. "Sir, I can't just—" "Now," Connor said. His voice carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. "Check it now. I'll meet you there." 5 minutes later, Connor stood in the Bennett Pharmaceuticals lobby with a skeptical security guard named Tom. Tom checked his computer, scrolled through keycard access logs. Derek Bennett checked in at 8:50 p.m. No checkout scan. Tom squinted at the screen. His keycard shows, freezer access, storage bay C. "And?" Connor pressed. "And he left. His car isn't in the lot, but his wife's is. Grace Bennett." Tom looked up. She must have gotten a ride home. Connor's gut twisted. Derek Bennett. He knew that name, knew it well. Derek Bennett, who'd stolen his business plan 7 years ago. Derek Bennett, who'd forged documents and fabricated evidence and nearly destroyed Connor's life. Derek Bennett, who'd cost him 3 years of lawsuits in rebuilding and starting over from nothing. Derek Bennett was a liar, a thief, a monster in expensive suits, and his pregnant wife's car had been abandoned for hours while his keycard showed freezer access. "Open the freezers," Connor said quietly. "Sir, I can't." Connor pulled out his wallet. $500 bills. He put them on the desk. "Open every freezer now." Tom looked at the money, looked at Connor's face. Whatever he saw there made him grab his keys. They moved through the building. Tom opened storage bay A, pharmaceutical supplies. No people. Storage bay B, more supplies. Empty. Storage bay C. Tom's hand hesitated on the keycard reader. Derek Bennett's access shows he was in here at 9:05 p.m. Tom checked his tablet. 10 hours ago, nobody else in or out. 10 hours. In a negative 50-degree freezer. No one survived that. But Connor's instincts screamed. He'd learned to trust those instincts. They'd saved his company more than once. They'd rebuilt his life after Derek destroyed it. And they were screaming now. "Open it!" Tom swiped his keycard. The lock clicked. He pulled the heavy door. It swung open with a hydraulic hiss. Cold air rolled out. Negative 50 degrees met 25 degrees in a cloud of condensation. Connor couldn't see through it at first. Couldn't see anything but white fog. Then the fog cleared. Connor's world stopped. A woman sat on the freezer floor, slumped against the wall, not moving. Her skin was blue-white. Her lips were purple. Her eyes were closed. And in her arms, wrapped in a small cardigan, was a tiny baby. Connor was moving before his brain caught up. He dropped to his knees beside her, felt for a pulse. Weak, barely there, but there. "Call 911, Shai!" he shouted at Tom. "Now!" Tom fumbled for his phone. Connor looked at the woman, Grace Bennett, Derek's wife. He'd never met her, but he'd seen photos, company events, social media, always smiling, always beside Derek. Now she sat frozen, dying, holding a baby that might already be dead. Connor felt the baby, also cold, also blue, but a faint heartbeat, faint breathing, alive, somehow alive. He looked down, saw the umbilical cord, saw the second baby, still attached, crying weakly, a sound like a kitten. His mind couldn't process it, couldn't comprehend it. She delivered 2 babies, alone, in a negative 50-degree freezer, and they were all still alive. Connor stripped off his suit jacket, his thermal shirt, wrapped the first baby, the second baby. Grace's eyes fluttered open, unfocused, delirious. "Please," she whispered, "don't let them die. Please, they're so small." That prayer, every mother's prayer in her darkest moment, Connor felt it pierce his heart. "I've got them," he said. "I've got you. Stay awake. Help is coming." "He locked me in." Grace's voice was barely audible. "My husband, Derek, he locked me in here. Connor's blood turned to ice. Not from the freezer, from rage. Pure, incandescent rage. Derek hadn't just stolen from him, hadn't just lied and cheated and destroyed. Derek had locked his pregnant wife in a freezer to die, had left her to deliver their children alone, had murdered 3 people for money. Except he'd failed, because Connor had noticed, because Connor's instincts had screamed, because the universe for once had intervened. Paramedics rushed in. Connor stepped back. Let them work. Watch them assess. Wrap. Stabilize. Move Grace and the babies onto stretchers. Rush them to the ambulance. Tom stood beside him, shaking. Did she say her husband locked her in? Yes, Connor said quietly. We need to call the police. Yes, but Connor was already thinking ahead, already planning. Derek Bennett had tried to commit the perfect murder, had come within minutes of succeeding, and Connor had evidence, security footage, keycard logs, timeline documentation. Derek had finally made a mistake, and Connor was going to make sure he paid for it, not just for what he'd done to Grace and the babies, for everything, for all of it. For 7 years of waiting and building evidence and documenting lies, this was the moment, the reckoning, the end of Derek Bennett's carefully constructed life. Connor followed the ambulance to the hospital. He didn't know Grace, didn't owe her anything, but he knew Derek, and he knew evil when he saw it, and he wasn't going to let evil win, not this time. In the ambulance, Grace held her babies. Paramedics worked frantically. Too cold, too small, too much trauma. The odds were terrible, but they were alive. Against every law of nature and medicine and common sense, they were alive. Grace's mind drifted. Memories flooded in. Things she'd ignored, things she'd explained away, things she'd pretended were normal. The push down the stairs at 5 months. Derek's hand on her back, then her tumbling. Him saying she tripped, her believing him. The food poisoning only she got. Him bringing her dinner, her getting violently ill. Him suggesting bad takeout, her accepting the explanation. The car brakes that failed. Him saying he'd take the car to the shop. Him forgetting, her nearly crashing. Him blaming the mechanic, her not questioning it. It wasn't the first time he tried to kill her. It was just the first time she couldn't pretend it was an accident. Ma'am, stay with us. A paramedic's voice. What are your babies' names? Names, she hadn't named them, hadn't had time, hadn't thought past survival. Emma, she whispered, and Noah. She'd always loved those names, classic, simple, strong. Derek had wanted Junior, had wanted to name the boy after himself. Grace had pushed back. Thank God she'd pushed back. Her son wouldn't carry a monster's name. The hospital appeared through the ambulance windows. Bright lights, lots of people, movement, urgency. Grace closed her eyes, let them take her, let them save her babies, let herself drift into darkness. She'd fought long enough. Now others could fight for her. Your babies are alive. The words filtered through fog. Grace tried to open her eyes, tried to move, couldn't. Everything hurt. Everything felt heavy and wrong and distant. Grace, can you hear me? Your babies are alive. Grace forced her eyes open. Hospital room, white walls, beeping machines. An older woman in scrubs sat beside the bed. Kind eyes, gray hair, competent hands. I'm Dr. Vivian Matthews. You're in the intensive care unit. You've been unconscious for 48 hours, but your babies are alive, both of them. 48 hours, 2 days. Grace's mind struggled to catch up. The freezer, the birth, the cold, the man who'd found them. My babies. Grace's voice was barely a whisper. Where are my babies? In the NICU, neonatal intensive care unit. They're critical but stable. Your daughter is 3 pounds 2 ounces. Your son is 2 pounds 14 ounces. 32 weeks gestation. Born at -50 degrees. By every medical standard, they shouldn't have survived, but they did. Grace tried to sit up. Pain shot through her body. She gasped. Don't move too quickly. You have severe frostbite. We had to amputate 3 toes on your left foot. Your hands have significant nerve damage. You have hypothermia-related organ stress. But you're alive, Grace, EI's phrase. All three of you are alive. Dr. Matthews leaned forward. Her expression shifted from clinical to something else. Anger. Your husband filed a missing persons report 16 hours after locking you in that freezer. He claimed you'd run away, said the pregnancy hormones made you unstable. He was very convincing, until security footage showed him leaving the building alone after accessing the freezer. Grace closed her eyes. Of course he did. Of course he had a story ready. Derek always had a story ready. Is he arrested? Yes, attempted murder, 3 counts, 1 for you, 1 for each baby. The police want to talk to you when you're ready, but there's no rush. Focus on healing. Focus on your babies. Grace looked at her hands, bandaged. She tried to move her fingers. Some responded, some didn't. Her feet, bandaged, 3 toes gone. She'd never wear open-toed shoes again, never walk the same, never be the same. But she was alive. Her babies were alive. Cars were the price of survival. She'd pay that price gladly. I want to see them. Emma and Noah. I want to see my babies. Dr. Matthews nodded. I'll have a nurse bring a wheelchair. They can't come out of the isolates yet. Too fragile. But you can see them. Talk to them. Be close to them. 20 minutes later, Grace sat in a wheelchair in the NICU. 2 isolates, 2 tiny bodies attached to wires and tubes and machines. So small, so impossibly small. Like dolls, like miracles. Emma had dark hair. Noah was blonde. Emma's face was round. Noah's was long. They looked nothing alike. Fraternal twins, 2 complete individuals who'd survived the impossible together. Grace reached through the isolate opening, touched Emma's tiny hand, felt Noah's soft hair, whispered to them, Mama's here. Mama's so proud of you. You're fighters, both of you, just like me. A nurse stood nearby, young, kind face. Name tag said Jennifer. They're amazing, Jennifer said. The doctors keep saying it's impossible. Babies born in those conditions shouldn't survive. But these 2 are fighters. They get it from their mother, a male voice said behind Grace. Grace turned. A man stood in the doorway. Tall, dark hair, expensive suit, kind eyes. She recognized him from the freezer. From the moment before everything went dark. You saved us, Grace said. Connor Hayes walked closer. I just noticed a car. Anyone would have done the same. But you did it. You called. You checked. You didn't ignore it. Grace's voice broke. You saved my babies' lives. Connor knelt beside the wheelchair, met her eyes. Your husband locked you in that freezer to die. You delivered 2 babies alone. You kept them alive for 10 hours in negative 50 degrees. You saved them. I just opened a door. You're Connor Hayes, Derek's old business partner. Enemy, Connor corrected quietly. He stole from me, lied about me, cost me 3 years of my life. But right now I'm here because you need help. Because Derek's defense team is expensive. Because his mother is hiring the best lawyers money can buy. And you need someone who won't be intimidated. Grace processed this. Derek's mother, Marjorie. Of course, Marjorie, who always excused Derek's behavior. Marjorie, who blamed Grace for everything. Marjorie, who'd never once acknowledged her grandchildren. Why would you help me? Connor's answer was simple. Because I know who Derek really is, and I have the resources to prove it. A woman rushed into the NICU, red hair, freckles, tears streaming down her face. Grace! Oh my God, Grace! Rachel Morrison, Grace's best friend since college. The one person Derek hadn't managed to completely alienate. Rachel hugged Grace carefully, sobbed into her shoulder. I came as soon as I heard. The news said, they said Derek, they said an attempted murder. I couldn't believe, I didn't want to believe. It's true, Grace said quietly. All of it. He locked me in a freezer. He tried to kill us for insurance money. Rachel pulled back, looked at the isolates, at Emma and Noah. Your babies, Grace, your babies are so beautiful. They're alive, that's all that matters. They're alive. But Grace's mind was flooding with memories now. Things she'd explained away. Red flags she'd ignored. A cage built 1 bar at a time. The way Derek insisted on controlling their money. every purchase questioned, every expense analyzed. Her marketing job that suddenly wasn't good enough. Her friends who were bad influences. Her family who didn't understand them. The isolation had been gradual. So gradual she hadn't noticed until she looked up one day and realized Derek was her only connection to the world. Derek controlled everything. Derek decided everything. Derek was everything. And somewhere along the way, Grace had disappeared. The vibrant woman who'd graduated top of her class had become a shadow, a ghost, a wife who existed to serve her husband's needs. I know what people will ask, Grace said suddenly. She looked at Dr. Matthews, at Connor, at Rachel. Why didn't I leave? Why didn't I see it? But you can't see the cage when someone builds it one bar at a time. The words hung in the air, true, raw, painful. No one argued. No one offered platitudes. They just listened. Grace turned back to the isolates, to Emma and Noah. But I'm out now, and I'm never going back. Connor stood. I have evidence about Derek's past, financial fraud, document forgery, criminal behavior that never made it to trial. If we use it in your case, it establishes a pattern, shows he's capable of calculated violence, makes your case airtight. What does it cost you? Civil liability, accusations of withholding evidence, maybe a lawsuit, but it's worth it. You need justice. Your babies need protection, and Derek needs to pay. Grace studied Connor's face, looked for angles, for hidden motives, for the catch, but she only saw sincerity, determination, a man who'd been burned by Derek and wanted to prevent it from happening again. Okay, she said, help me, please. I can't fight him alone anymore. You're not alone, Rachel said fiercely. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, doctor. Matthew squeezed Grace's shoulder. I'm testifying about your injuries, about the medical impossibility of what happened, about the trauma. I'm making sure everyone knows exactly what he did. 3 people, 3 allies. More than Grace had had in 5 years of marriage. A police detective entered the NICU, female, 40s, sharp eyes. Mrs. Bennett, I'm Detective Laura Friedman. When you're ready, I'd like to take your full statement. Grace nodded. I'm ready now. Detective Friedman pulled up a chair, turned on a recorder, asked Grace to start at the beginning. Tell everything, leave nothing out. So Grace talked about the late-night call, the empty building, the freezer, Derek's voice explaining why he was killing her, the 10 hours of cold, the labor, the birth, the desperate fight to keep her babies alive. As she talked, the memories crystallized, became evidence, became pieces of a case that would send Derek to prison. Grace's voice didn't shake. She'd cried enough. Now was time for cold, hard facts. Detective Friedman took notes, asked questions, clarified timeline. When Grace finished, the detective leaned back. This is one of the worst domestic violence cases I've ever investigated, but it's also one of the strongest. Security footage, keycard logs, your medical evidence, the babies. It's airtight. But Derek has money, Grace said. His mother has money. They'll hire the best as lawyers. Let them, Connor said. I have better ones, and I have something more important. The truth. Derek's built his life on lies. But lies fall apart under scrutiny. The truth is stronger. Grace wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that justice would prevail. But she'd trusted before, trusted Derek. Look where that got her. Connor seemed to read her mind. I know trust is hard right now. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to let me help. The rest will follow. Grace looked at her babies, at Emma's tiny chest rising and falling, at Noah's miniature fingers curled in fists. They were fighters. She was a fighter. Together they'd survived the impossible. Now they just had to survive what came next. Derek Bennett's arraignment made national news. The pharmaceutical manager accused of locking his pregnant wife in a freezer. The twins born at -50 degrees. The miraculous survival. Grace watched from her hospital bed. Derek wore an expensive suit. His hair was perfect. His expression was devastated. He looked like the grieving husband, the confused victim, the man whose world had fallen apart. The judge set bail at $5 million. Derek's lawyer immediately posted it. Marjorie Bennett wrote the check without hesitation. Derek walked out of the courtroom a free man. Grace's hands shook, not from frostbite, from rage. He tried to murder us, and people are defending him. Her hospital room had become command central. Rachel brought clothes and toiletries. Connor brought legal documents. Matthews coordinated medical care. Detective Friedman provided updates on the investigation. But the news coverage was shifting. Some outlets called it a domestic dispute gone wrong. Some questioned Grace's version of events. Some wondered if she'd been unstable and hormonal and confused. Derek's narrative was everywhere. He loved his wife. He was devastated by these false accusations. It was a terrible misunderstanding. He'd locked the freezer for inventory purposes and assumed Grace had already left. The pregnancy hormones had made her paranoid. She was making wild accusations. He would never hurt his family. He cried during interviews, broke down during press conferences. His mother stood beside him, vouched for his character, called Grace vindictive and manipulative and unstable. "He's gaslighting the entire country," Rachel said. She paced the hospital room. "People are believing him. I'm seeing comments, saying you're lying, saying you're trying to take his money, saying pregnancy made you crazy." Grace stared at the TV, at Derek's tearful face, at Marjorie's righteous indignation, at the narrative being built, brick by brick, lie by lie. "That's what he does," Grace said quietly. "He lies. He manipulates. He makes you doubt reality. It's who he is." Her phone rang. Unknown number. Grace almost didn't answer, but something made her. Some instinct. "Grace, it's Marjorie." Derek's mother. Grace's throat tightened. "What do you want?" "I want you to drop these ridiculous charges. Derek made a mistake. He's devastated. But you're being vindictive, using the babies as leverage. It's cruel." Grace's voice stayed level. "He locked me in a freezer to die for insurance money. That's not a mistake. That's attempted murder." "You always were dramatic, hormonal. Derek said you needed psychiatric help." Maybe he was right. Grace hung up, deleted the voicemail that followed without listening. That final press of the delete button. The one that said, "I'm done pretending. I'm done trying to convince you. I'm done caring what you think." Connor arrived 30 minutes later. Expensive suit, grim expression, papers in hand. "We need to talk." He sat, laid out documents. Derek had gambling debts, $400,000 owed to some very dangerous people. "Your life insurance policy is $2 million. He increased it 6 months ago without telling you." Grace felt sick. "How long was he planning this?" "At least 9 months, since you got pregnant. The freezer door was tested multiple times over the past 6 months. He researched hypothermia timelines, practiced his story. This wasn't impulse. This was calculated." Detective Friedman entered with more evidence. Security footage showed Derek entering the freezer with Grace, showed him leaving alone 20 minutes later, showed him driving away, showed him returning 16 hours later to discover her missing. "He filed the missing persons report from his car," Friedman explained. "Claimed you'd called him saying you needed space. Claimed you'd run away before. Lied about your mental health. Built an entire narrative before anyone even knew you were missing." Grace processed this. Every detail planned, every word rehearsed, every angle covered. Derek had been 2 minutes away from committing the perfect murder. 2 minutes away from $2 million and freedom. Except Connor had noticed a car, had followed instinct, had opened a door. "I'm testifying," Grace said. "I'm facing him in court. I want him to see that he didn't break me." Connor looked concerned. "His defense team will tear into you. They'll question everything, your memory, your stability, your motives. It won't be easy." "Nothing about this has been easy, but I'm not hiding. I'm not letting him control the narrative anymore." Grace's voice was steel. "He wants people to think I'm weak? I'll show them exactly how strong I am." Rachel squeezed her hand. "I'm coming with you, every court date, every hearing, every second." Dr. Matthews entered. "The twins are improving. Emma's breathing on her own for short periods. Noah's gaining weight. They're fighters, just like their mother." Grace smiled, first real smile since waking up. "Can I hold them?" "Not yet, too fragile, but soon. Maybe next week. They need a few more days of stabilization. A few more days. Grace could wait. She'd waited through 10 hours in a freezer. She could wait a few more days to hold her babies. But Derek had other plans. His lawyer filed for emergency custody, claimed Grace was unfit, claimed she'd abandoned the children, claimed psychiatric evaluation was needed, claimed parental rights superseded criminal charges. The audacity took Grace's breath away. He'd tried to murder them, and now he wanted custody. Connor's lawyer shut it down immediately, pointed to the criminal charges, the evidence, the attempted murder. No judge would grant custody to a man accused of trying to kill his children. The petition was denied within hours. But it showed Derek's strategy: attack, deflect, make Grace the villain, make people question her, make her look unstable and vindictive and manipulative. It was the abuser's playbook, the one Grace had lived with for 5 years, the one she knew by heart. Except now, she wasn't alone. Now she had allies. Now she had resources. Now she had the truth on her side. Connor returned with more evidence. Financial records showing Derek's gambling. Bank statements showing the insurance policy increase. Email exchanges with the insurance company. Text messages to the people he owed money to. A paper trail that proved motive, proved planning, proved intent. "This is more than we need," Connor said. "This is overwhelming evidence. No jury will acquit him." But Grace knew better. She knew Derek, knew his charm, knew his ability to make people believe anything, knew juries acquitted charming men all the time. "We need more," Grace said. "We need his past. We need the fraud you mentioned. We need everything that shows this is who he is, not a mistake, not a misunderstanding, but calculated evil." Connor hesitated. "If I bring that evidence forward, I expose myself to liability. I've known about his fraud for a year. I was building a civil case. But using it in your criminal trial means I should have reported it earlier. I could face charges myself. I can't ask you to do that." "You're not asking. I'm offering." Connor met her eyes. "Derek destroyed 3 years of my life. He nearly destroyed me completely. If I can prevent him from destroying anyone else, it's worth the risk." Grace studied his face, saw determination, saw justice, saw something else, something that looked like genuine care. "Why are you really doing this?" she asked quietly. Connor considered his answer. 7 years ago, Derek took something from me. Not just my business plan, my faith in people. I became cynical, guarded, built walls around everything. Then I found you in that freezer, and I remembered what it feels like to act without calculating return on investment. You reminded me how to be human. The honesty surprised Grace. She'd expected a calculation, an angle, a reason that benefited him. But this was just truth. Messy, complicated, human truth. "Thank you," she whispered. Connor nodded. "We're going to win this. Not just the criminal case, all of it. Derek's going to pay for everything he's done. To you, to me, to everyone he's hurt." Grace wanted to believe him, wanted to trust, but trust was a muscle she'd forgotten how to use. Derek had atrophied it, starved it, killed it. "I don't know how to trust anymore," she admitted. "Then don't trust me," Connor said simply. "Just let me help. Trust can come later. Or not. Either way, I'm seeing this through." Grace looked at her phone, notifications everywhere. Messages from people she hadn't spoken to in years. Some supportive, some questioning, some outright accusing her of lying. She turned the phone off. She didn't need their opinions, didn't need their validation, didn't need anything except to heal and protect her babies and make sure Derek paid for what he'd done. Starting over felt impossible, but staying in Derek's world felt worse. So Grace chose impossible, chose hard, chose freedom over familiar pain. She was done being a victim, done being weak, done apologizing for surviving. Derek wanted her dead. Instead, she was alive, angry, and ready to fight. Connor's father arrived on a Tuesday. Theodore Hayes, 62 years old, retired judge, silver hair, sharp mind, the kind of man who commanded respect just by entering a room. He brought files, boxes of them, 7 years of evidence carefully compiled and documented. Email chains, financial records, forged signatures, witness statements, a complete picture of Derek Bennett's fraud. Grace sat in her hospital room. She graduated to a regular room now, no longer critical, just recovering. The twins were still in NICU, but improving daily. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. Theo laid out the evidence methodically. 7 years ago, Derek and Connor were business school classmates. They developed a software platform together, a revolutionary database system. Connor did most of the work. Derek handled the business side. Connor picked up the story. Derek approached investors without me, presented the platform as his sole creation, forged my signature on transfer documents. When I found out and tried to expose him, he fabricated evidence that I'd embezzled from our account. The accusations nearly destroyed Connor, Theo continued. Lost investors, lost reputation, spent 3 years fighting lawsuits Derek initiated. By the time the truth emerged, Derek had sold the platform, made millions, disappeared into the pharmaceutical industry. Grace processed this. Why didn't you press charges? Statute of limitations on the fraud had passed, Connor said bitterly, and the embezzlement charges, while false, had just enough manufactured evidence to make me look guilty. Fighting them would have cost more than I had, so I let it go, rebuilt from nothing, focused on creating something Derek couldn't touch. But you documented everything. Every email, every transaction, every lie. Connor pulled out a folder. Last year, a whistleblower from Derek's first company came forward, someone who'd witnessed the fraud, who had copies of the original documents, who could testify that Derek forged my signature. Theo leaned forward. If we use this in your criminal case, it establishes a pattern, shows Derek is capable of calculated deception for financial gain, shows this isn't a one-time mistake, but a lifelong pattern of manipulation and violence. But, Connor added, it also exposes me to civil liability. I've had this evidence for a year. Prosecutors could argue I should have come forward earlier. That I withheld evidence of a crime, Derek's lawyers will definitely argue it. Grace looked between them, father and son, both willing to risk themselves for her case, for justice, for truth. Why would you take that risk? Theo's expression softened. Because I spent 30 years on the bench. I saw a lot of cases, a lot of victims, a lot of abusers who walked free because victims were too scared or too unsupported to fight back. If I can help even one victim get justice, it's worth whatever consequences come. Grace felt something crack in her chest, not breaking, opening, the hard shell she'd built around herself. The armor that kept everyone out, it was cracking. Just a little, just enough to let in the possibility of trust. Use it, she said, use all of it. I don't care about the risk. I care about keeping my babies safe. I care about making sure Derek never does this to anyone else. Connor nodded. I'll bring it to the prosecutor today. He left. Theo stayed, looked at Grace with kind eyes, the same kind eyes Connor had. My son likes you, he said gently. I can see it, but he won't push. He knows you've been through hell. He knows trust takes time. Just don't punish him for what Derek did. Not all men are monsters. I know that, Grace said. But did she? 5 years with Derek had taught her that men lied, men manipulated, men used love as a weapon. How did you unlearn that? Give him time, Theo suggested. Give yourself time. Focus on healing. Focus on those beautiful babies. The rest will sort itself out. After Theo left, Grace sat with her thoughts, tried to process everything. Derek's history of fraud, Connor's sacrifice, the evidence that would seal Derek's fate, the cost it would exact from Connor. Why would someone do that? Why would Connor risk so much for her? For babies that weren't his? For a woman he barely knew? The only answer that made sense was the one Theo had hinted at. Connor cared, actually cared, without agenda, without calculation, just genuinely wanted to help. Grace didn't know what to do with that, hadn't experienced it in 5 years, maybe longer. Derek had always had angles, always wanted something, always calculated versus benefit. But Connor just showed up, helped, asked for nothing. It was disorienting. A nurse wheeled Grace to NICU for her daily visit. Emma and Noah were off ventilators now, breathing on their own, still tiny, still fragile, but stronger every day. Grace reached into the isolettes, touched their soft skin, counted fingers and toes, marveled at their perfection. "Mama's here," she whispered. "Mama's fighting for you. We're going to be okay. All of us." Emma's eyes opened, looked directly at Grace, that moment of connection. Mother and daughter, two souls recognizing each other. Grace's heart swelled until it felt too big for her chest. "You're so strong," Grace told her. "You survived the impossible. You're a fighter, just like me." Noah yawned. Tiny mouth, tiny nose, tiny everything. But fierce, Grace could see it already. Her son had survived -50 degrees. He could survive anything. "We're going to build a good life," Grace promised them. "A safe life. No more fear, no more walking on eggshells, just us, just peace." But doubt crept in. What kind of mother can't keep her children safe? What kind of mother doesn't see the danger until it's too late? What kind of mother lets her babies be born in a freezer? Grace's eyes filled with tears. She was failing them, had failed them, would continue to fail them, because she was broken, damaged, not enough. "That's not true." Grace looked up. Connor stood in the doorway. Had he been there the whole time? Had he heard her spiraling? He walked closer, looked at the babies. "You survived a freezer and delivered 2 babies alone. You kept them alive for 10 hours in -50 degrees. You're still fighting when anyone else would have given up. That kind of mother." Grace wiped her eyes. "I let him hurt us. I didn't see the signs. I stayed when I should have left. He gaslit you, manipulated you, isolated you, made you doubt your own reality. That's what abusers do. That's their specialty. None of that is your fault. But the babies are alive because of you, because you refused to give up, because you fought with everything you had. Those babies are lucky to have you as their mother." Grace wanted to believe him, wanted to accept his words, but the guilt was too heavy, too suffocating, too real. Connor seemed to sense this. He didn't push, just stood there, present, solid, real. After a long silence, Grace spoke. "Starting over feels impossible. I don't have money, no job, no home. Derek controlled everything. I don't even know how to access our accounts. I don't know where to begin." You begin by healing, by focusing on Emma and Noah, by letting people help you. The rest will follow. "I don't know how to let people help me. Derek made sure I didn't need anyone but him. I forgot how." "Then we'll remind you, Rachel, Dr. Matthews, my father, me. We'll show you what support looks like without strings attached." Grace looked at him, really looked. Saw the man who showed up, who didn't promise to fix everything but offered to stand beside her while she fixed it herself, who gave without expecting return, who cared without condition. It terrified her, because caring meant vulnerability. Vulnerability meant pain, and Grace had experienced enough pain for 10 lifetimes. "I'm not ready," she said honestly. "I know, that's okay, I'll wait." "For what?" "For you to be ready, for you to trust again, for you to believe that not everyone wants to hurt you, however long it takes." Grace didn't respond, couldn't. The words were too big, too much, too everything. Connor left her alone with the babies. Grace sat there for an hour, just watching them breathe, just being present, just surviving another day. And somewhere in a place she didn't want to acknowledge yet, something shifted. The tiniest crack of light in the darkness, the smallest possibility of hope, the faintest whisper that maybe, just maybe, life could be good again someday. Not today, not soon, but someday. The bail hearing was brutal. Grace sat in the courtroom, first time seeing Derek since the freezer. He looked good, healthy, well-rested, like a man without conscience, without guilt. His eyes found hers across the room, cold, calculating, hateful. The mask was off now, no more pretending, just pure malice. Grace didn't flinch, didn't look away, stared right back. You tried to kill me. And I'm still here. I won. The defense argued Derek wasn't a flight risk. Upstanding citizen, community ties, no prior criminal record, loving family, devastated by false accusations, eager to clear his name. The prosecution used Connor's evidence, presented the fraud case, showed the pattern, established Derek's history of calculated deception and manipulation, argued he was dangerous, argued he'd planned 3 murders, argued bail should be denied. The judge took 20 minutes to decide. Bail remained at $5 million, no reduction. Derek would stay in custody pending trial. Marjorie's face turned red. She stood, shouted at the judge, was escorted out by bailiffs. The outburst probably hurt Derek's case more than helped, showed the family instability, showed the enabling, showed where Derek learned his behavior. After the hearing, Marjorie cornered Grace in the hallway. You're destroying my son's life over a misunderstanding. He made a mistake. You've blown this completely out of proportion. Grace's voice stayed level. He locked me in a freezer to die for insurance money. That's not a mistake. That's attempted murder. You always were dramatic, hormonal. Derek said you needed psychiatric help. Marjorie's voice dripped disdain. Maybe if you'd been a better wife, he wouldn't have been so stressed. Grace turned and walked away. Didn't argue, didn't defend herself, just left. That moment when you finally realize some people will never believe you and you stop trying to convince them. It was liberating, painful, but liberating. Rachel caught up. I can't believe she said that. I wanted to punch her. She's been making excuses for Derek his whole life. She's not going to stop now. Trial preparation began the next week. Connor's lawyers were thorough, relentless, prepared Grace for every possible question, every attack, every insinuation. The defense would call her mentally unstable, would question her memory, would suggest she'd locked herself in the freezer and blamed Derek, would paint her as vindictive, manipulative, a woman scorned who'd weaponized her children. It was absurd, insulting, but also standard defense strategy. Make the victim the villain, make the jury doubt, make everyone forget who the real monster was. Grace practiced her testimony 100 times, stayed calm, stayed factual, didn't get emotional, didn't get defensive, just told the truth. Simple, clear, unshakable. Detective Friedman uncovered more evidence. Derek had researched divorce lawyers 6 months earlier, had calculated child support payments, had decided murder was cheaper than divorce. Cold, mathematical, evil in its purest form. He was planning to kill you the whole pregnancy, Friedman explained. The freezer was just one option. He'd also researched car accidents, house fires, carbon monoxide poisoning, allergic reactions. He was shopping for the perfect murder method. Grace felt sick. Every day of her pregnancy, Derek had been planning her death. Every doctor's appointment, every ultrasound, every time he'd felt the baby's kick, he'd been calculating, scheming, plotting. How did I not see it? Grace whispered. Because he's a sociopath, Friedman said bluntly. He has no conscience, no empathy. He can fake emotions perfectly. That's his gift and his danger. The twins came home from NICU on a Thursday, still small but stable. Home health nurses visited daily. Grace learned to feed them, burp them, change them, love them. She moved into a rental apartment, small, safe, far from Derek's world. Rachel helped set it up. Connor provided furniture. Dr. Matthews recommended pediatricians. Theo handled legal paperwork. Grace had a team now, people who showed up, people who cared, people who didn't want anything except to help. It was foreign, uncomfortable, but also nice, really nice. The trial date was set, 3 months away, 3 months to prepare, 3 months to heal, 3 months to build a new life. But Derek's lawyers filed motion after motion, tried to exclude evidence, tried to delay the trial, tried to get charges reduced, tried everything possible to help their client avoid consequences. Connor's lawyers fought back. Every motion, every delay, every tactic. They were relentless, expensive, worth every penny. "Why are you paying for all this?" Grace asked Connor one evening. He'd stopped by with dinner. Thai food, Grace's favorite. How did he know that? "Because I can, because you need it, because Derek doesn't get to win. But the cost, your legal fees, my apartment, the furniture, the nurse, it's tens of thousands of dollars." Connor shrugged. "I'm a billionaire. That's not bragging, just fact. I have more money than I'll ever spend. Using it to help you and your babies, that's the best investment I could make. I don't know how to repay you. I don't want repayment. I want you safe. I want Emma and Noah safe. I want Derek in prison where he belongs. That's payment enough." Grace studied his face, looked for the angle, the manipulation, the cost that would come due eventually, but found none. Just sincerity, just genuine care, just a man trying to help because helping was right. "I don't know what to do with you," Grace admitted. Connor smiled. "You don't have to do anything. Just focus on your babies. Focus on healing. Focus on building the life you want. I'll be here if you need me, or not. No pressure, no expectations." After he left, Grace sat with Emma and Noah, fed them their bottles, watched their eyes flutter closed, felt their weight in her arms. So precious, so perfect, so worth fighting for. "Mama's going to make sure you're safe," she whispered. "Mama's going to make sure that man never hurts you. Mama promises." But promises were easy. Keeping them was hard. The trial loomed. Derek's lawyers were good, really good. They'd find ways to twist the truth, to make Grace look bad, to create reasonable doubt. Grace had to be better, had to be stronger, had to be unbreakable, because her babies depended on it, because justice depended on it, because every woman who'd ever been abused depended on it. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for all of them, all the women who'd been gaslit, manipulated, hurt, silenced. Grace would be their voice, their proof, their victory. Derek tried to break her. Instead, he forged her into someone who couldn't be broken, and that was his biggest mistake. The trial began on a Monday in February. Cold, gray, appropriate weather for judging a monster. Grace sat at the prosecution table, wore a navy blue suit. Rachel had helped her pick it out. Conservative, respectful, strong. The kind of outfit that said, "Take me seriously," without saying anything at all. Derek sat at the defense table. Expensive suit, perfect hair, wounded expression. The image of a man wrongly accused. Grace's stomach turned. Jury selection took 2 days. The prosecution wanted women, parents, people who'd understand the horror of locking a pregnant woman in a freezer. The defense wanted men, childless people, anyone who might see Grace as hysterical or manipulative. They ended up with 7 women and 5 men, ages ranging from 28 to 65, mixed backgrounds, some parents, some not, a representative cross-section. It would have to be enough. Opening statements painted 2 different realities. The prosecution told the truth. Derek's calculated plan, the freezer, the birth, the attempted murder. Simple, clear, horrifying. The defense told a story. A misunderstanding, a tragic accident, a mentally unstable wife making false accusations, a man being railroaded by an ambitious prosecutor. Lies wrapped in rhetoric, but effective lies. Grace saw some jurors nod, some consider, some doubt. The first witnesses were police and security personnel. They established timeline, presented footage, showed Derek entering the freezer with Grace, showed him leaving alone, showed him driving away. Facts, irrefutable facts. Dr. Matthews testified next, described Grace's injuries, the frostbite, the hypothermia, the medical impossibility of surviving 10 hours at -50 degrees, the miracle of 3 people living through it. In my 30 years as an emergency physician, I have never seen anyone survive exposure like this, Dr. Matthews said. The fact that Mrs. Bennett delivered 2 premature babies and kept them alive in those conditions is beyond remarkable. It's impossible, except it happened. The defense cross-examined, tried to suggest Grace had exaggerated, had fabricated details, had been confused. Dr. Matthews shut it down methodically, coldly, effectively. Connor testified about finding Grace, about the key card logs, about Derek's history of fraud. The defense objected repeatedly, tried to exclude the fraud evidence. The judge allowed it as pattern evidence, showed Derek's capacity for calculated deception. Grace testified on day 4. She'd practiced for this, prepared for every question, every attack, every insinuation. But sitting in the witness box, facing Derek across the courtroom, all the preparation felt inadequate. The prosecutor asked her to describe the night. Grace took a breath, started at the beginning. The phone call, the empty building, the freezer, Derek's voice, the cold, the labor, the birth, every detail, every moment, every second of horror. Her voice stayed steady. She'd promised herself she wouldn't cry, wouldn't show weakness, wouldn't give Derek the satisfaction. She kept that promise, spoke clearly, factually, let the horror speak for itself. The defense attorney's cross-examination was brutal. Isn't it true you threatened to leave Mr. Bennett? Yes, because he pushed me down the stairs when I was 5 months pregnant. But you stayed. I stayed because I was terrified, because he controlled all our money, because he'd isolated me from everyone I knew, because leaving an abuser is the most dangerous time for a victim. The attorney pressed. Isn't it true you have a history of depression? I was depressed because I was being abused. Isn't it possible you imagined some of these events? That pregnancy hormones affected your memory? No, I remember everything clearly. Every word Derek said, every moment in that freezer, every second of fighting to keep my babies alive. The attorney changed tactics. Isn't it true you stand to gain financially from these accusations? That you'll receive sympathy, support, money? I stand to gain my life, my children's lives, freedom from a man who tried to murder us. That's what I stand to gain. Grace didn't break, didn't waver, answered every question with calm certainty. The attorney tried for an hour, got nowhere, finally dismissed her. Grace walked back to her seat. Rachel squeezed her hand. Connor nodded. She'd done it. Survived cross-examination, told her truth. The rest was up to the jury. The defense called character witnesses, Derek's co-workers, his friends, his mother. They all testified to his good character, his kindness, his devotion, his devastation over these false charges. Marjorie's testimony was particularly vicious. She painted Grace as unstable, manipulative, a woman who'd trapped her son with pregnancy, who'd weaponized the children, who'd made up lies to ruin Derek's life. Grace listened to it all, felt each word like a slap, but she didn't react, didn't engage, just sat, calm, present, unbreakable. Then the defense called their surprise witness, Miranda Stevens, 32 years old, pretty, blonde, nervous. The defense attorney established that Miranda had dated Derek 7 years ago, before he met Grace. Miranda testified about Derek's gentle nature, his kind heart, his devotion to family. And have you observed Mrs. Bennett's behavior toward Mr. Bennett? The attorney asked. Yes, she seems very jealous, very controlling, very quick to anger. Lies, all lies. Grace had never met this woman, never exhibited any of those behaviors. But the jury didn't know that. The jury saw a credible witness testifying for the defense. Grace's heart sank. This was it, the moment that created reasonable doubt, the moment Derek's lawyers had been building toward, a witness with no obvious connection to the case, no reason to lie, just telling her truth about Derek's character. Then the prosecutor stood for cross-examination. Ms. Stevens, how did you come to testify today? Miranda hesitated. Mr. Bennett's lawyer contacted me. And did you receive any compensation for your testimony? Longer hesitation. Yes, $10,000. The courtroom erupted. The judge banged his gavel. Miranda started crying. I'm sorry, she sobbed. I can't do this. I can't lie anymore. She turned to the jury, tears streaming. Derek paid me to lie. But the truth is, he did the same thing to me. 7 years ago, he locked me in a basement apartment for 3 days when I tried to break up with him. I was too scared to press charges. But I can't let him do this to another woman. I cannot let him hurt Grace and those babies. I'm so sorry. Chaos, The defense attorney shouted objections. The judge called recess. Bailiffs surrounded Miranda. Grace sat stunned, unable to process what just happened. Rachel hugged her. "Oh my God, did that really just happen?" Connor's expression was grim satisfaction. Derek's defense just collapsed. After recess, the prosecutor recalled Miranda as a rebuttal witness. This time she told the truth. About Derek's abuse, about the locked apartment, about the fear and manipulation and control, about being too scared to report, about living with guilt for 7 years. "When I heard what he did to Grace, I couldn't stay silent anymore," Miranda said. "He locked her in a freezer. She was pregnant. She delivered babies alone. He tried to kill them. I could have prevented this if I'd spoken up. I have to live with that." Her testimony was devastating. Showed Derek's pattern. Showed this wasn't a one-time event. Showed he'd been locking women in small spaces and exerting control for years. Showed he was exactly what Grace said he was. A monster. The defense had no recovery, no way to spin it, no miracle save. They rested their case quickly, cut their losses, hoped the jury would somehow ignore what they just witnessed. Closing arguments were powerful. The prosecution painted a picture of calculated evil, of a man who planned 3 murders for money, of a woman who survived the impossible, of babies born into hell and somehow living. The defense tried, argued reasonable doubt, argued Miranda was unreliable, argued Grace was mistaken, but their heart wasn't in it. They knew they'd lost. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Grace waited, paced, prayed, tried to stay calm. Connor sat beside her, steady, solid, present. "Whatever happens, we'll deal with it," he said. But Grace needed a conviction, needed justice, needed Derek locked away where he couldn't hurt anyone ever again. The jury returned. Grace's heart pounded. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only wait. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor. On the charge of attempted murder of Grace Bennett, how do you find?" "Guilty." Grace's knees weakened. Rachel caught her, held her up. "On the charge of attempted murder of Emma Bennett, how do you find?" "Guilty." "On the charge of attempted murder of Noah Bennett, how do you find?" "Guilty." 3 counts, 3 guilty verdicts. Derek would spend the rest of his life in prison, would never hurt anyone again, would never see his children, would die in a cell, alone, forgotten, exactly what he deserved. Derek's face showed nothing, no emotion, no reaction, just blank. The mask finally permanent, the monster fully revealed. Grace felt everything, relief, joy, grief, exhaustion, victory, loss, all of it crashing over her in waves. She'd won, they'd won, justice had prevailed. But winning felt hollow because her babies had been born in a freezer, because she'd lost toes and nerve function, because trust was shattered, because trauma was forever. Winning didn't erase any of that, just meant the man who'd caused it would face consequences. That would have to be enough. 6 months after the trial, Grace's life looked completely different. She lived in a small house now, 3 bedrooms, fenced yard, safe neighborhood. Rachel lived 10 minutes away, Connor 15, Dr. Matthews 20, a network of support, of safety, of people who cared. Emma and Noah were thriving, 6 months old, hitting milestones, rolling over, babbling, laughing. 2 perfect babies with no memory of their traumatic birth. Grace envied them that, the blank slate, the fresh start, the absence of nightmares. Grace working from home, marketing consultant, flexible hours, good pay. Clients who didn't ask questions about her past, just wanted her expertise. It felt good, using her skills, being independent, building something that was entirely hers. Connor visited weekly, brought dinner, played with the twins, never asked for anything, just showed up. After 6 months, it had become routine, expected, comfortable. One Thursday evening, Grace asked, "Why are you really here?" They sat on her back porch. The twins were asleep. The neighborhood was quiet. The question hung between them. Connor considered his answer. 7 years ago, Derek took something from me. Not just my business plan, my faith in people. I became cynical, guarded, built walls around everything. Then I found you in that freezer, and I remembered what it feels like to act without calculating return on investment. You reminded me how to be human. That's a lot of pressure, Grace said, but she was smiling. No pressure, just gratitude. They sat in comfortable silence. Grace checked her phone, checked the locks, once, twice, 3 times. Old habits from living with Derek. Some nights she only checked it twice. Progress. Connor noticed but didn't comment. Just sat, present, patient, willing to wait however long it took. I'm not good at this, Grace admitted. At letting people in, at trusting, at believing someone can care without wanting something back. I know. Derek made sure I needed only him. Made sure I had no one else. I forgot how to have normal relationships, how to accept help, how to believe people can be kind without agenda. So we'll figure it out together. No rush, no expectations, just time. Grace looked at him, really looked. At the man who'd shown up at her worst moment and never left, who'd given without asking, who'd waited without complaining, who'd been exactly what she needed when she needed it. She wasn't ready, not yet. Trust was a muscle that needed exercise. Grace's trust muscle had atrophied, been starved, nearly died. It would take time to rebuild. But maybe, someday, she could try. What are you thinking? Connor asked gently. That I don't deserve you, that you should find someone less broken, someone who can trust easily, someone who doesn't check locks 3 times and flinch at raised voices and panic when plans change unexpectedly. I'm not looking for someone perfect. I'm looking for someone real, someone strong, someone who survived the impossible and is still standing. That's you, Grace. That's exactly you. Grace's eyes filled with tears. I finally understand that the prison door had been unlocked all along. I'd been my own warden, but I'm free now, and I'm never going back. Connor reached for her hand, slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Let him take it. Let him hold it. Let herself feel the warmth and safety of human connection without fear. It was terrifying and wonderful and small and huge, all at once. Can we go slow? Grace whispered. As slow as you need. I mean really slow, like months, maybe years. I don't know how long it'll take me to trust again. Then we'll take months, or years, or however long. I'm not going anywhere, Grace, unless you want me to. Then I'll respect that too. Grace squeezed his hand. I don't want you to go. I just need time. Time is easy. Time I can do. They sat like that for an hour, holding hands, not talking, just being. 2 people learning to trust again, learning to hope, learning that maybe, just maybe, good things could happen after bad. 3 months later, Grace asked Connor on a date, a real date, not dinner at her house, not playing with the twins, an actual grown-up date at a restaurant with real clothes and babysitters and everything. Connor looked stunned. Really? Really, but we're going slow. This is just dinner, not a commitment, not a relationship, just dinner. Dinner works, Connor agreed. Dinner is perfect. The date was awkward and wonderful. Grace was out of practice, forgot how to flirt, forgot how to make conversation without discussing baby schedules, forgot how to be a woman instead of just a mother. But Connor was patient, drew her out, asked questions, listened, made her laugh, reminded her she was more than her trauma, more than Derek's victim, more than a mother. She was Grace, and Grace was pretty amazing. 3 more months passed, more dates, more conversations, more slow building of trust. Connor met her therapist, her parents, her sister, everyone who mattered in Grace's rebuilding life. He fit easily, naturally, like he'd always been there. Their first kiss happened on a Tuesday. Grace had been telling a story, something about Emma's new tooth. Connor was smiling, listening, being present. And Grace thought, this is what it should feel like, safe, easy, right. She leaned in, kissed him, simple, sweet, no expectation, just connection. Connor kissed her back, gentle, respectful, perfect. When they pulled apart, Grace was crying. Happy tears, healing tears, the kind that wash away old pain and make room for new joy. "You okay?" Connor asked, concerned. "I'm more than okay. I'm happy, actually happy. I forgot what that felt like." Connor wiped her tears. "You deserve happiness, Grace. You deserve all good things. You deserve a life that doesn't hurt." Grace believed him, for the first time, actually believed that she deserved good things, that Derek hadn't ruined her, that trauma didn't define her, that she could rebuild, could heal, could love again. It was revolutionary. Derek tried to contact her from prison, letter after letter, demanding to see the twins, claiming parental rights, trying to maintain control even from behind bars. Grace burned every letter, didn't read them, didn't respond, didn't give him any energy. He had already taken enough. He didn't get another second. His lawyer tried one final custody petition. Connor's lawyer destroyed it, pointed to the attempted murder, the life sentence, the complete absence of parental relationship. The judge didn't even hold a hearing, denied the petition in writing. Derek had zero rights to Emma and Noah, zero access, zero claim. He was erased, legally, completely, forever. Grace changed the twins' last name from Bennett to Morrison, her maiden name. A fresh start, a new identity, a life without Derek's shadow. On Emma and Noah's first birthday, Connor proposed. Simple, private, just the four of them in Grace's backyard. "I know you don't need me," Connor said. "You've proven that 1,000 times over. But I'd like to be part of your family. If you'll have me, I want to adopt Emma and Noah, be their dad in every way that matters. And I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life." Grace didn't answer immediately, checked with her therapist first, with Rachel, with her parents, with her own heart, made sure she was choosing freely, choosing for the right reasons, choosing love instead of need, choosing partnership instead of rescue. The answer was yes, but only because she wanted to, not because she had to, and that made all the difference. Grace stood in front of the mirror. Yellow dress, her favorite color. Derek had always forbidden yellow, said it made her look washed out. But Grace loved yellow, loved sunshine, loved brightness, loved everything Derek hated. Today was her wedding day. Small ceremony, close friends, family, people who'd stood by her through hell, people who'd earned the right to celebrate her joy. Rachel helped with her hair, simple, elegant, Grace's style. "You look beautiful," Rachel said. "Happy, really, truly happy." "I am," Grace admitted. "I didn't think I'd ever be happy again, but I am." Emma toddled over, 14 months old, walking now, talking, growing. "Mama pretty," she announced. Noah followed, quieter than his sister, but steady, strong. "Mama," he agreed. Grace scooped them both up, held them close, breathed in their baby smell, marveled at their perfection. They had no memory of the freezer, no trauma, no fear, just love, just safety, just the good parts of life. "You ready for this?" Rachel asked. "Yes, Shrilliat, yes, I'm ready." The ceremony was perfect, small, intimate, meaningful. Connor wore a navy suit, cried during his vows, promised to love Grace and Emma and Noah for the rest of his life, promised to be a partner, not a rescuer, promised to stand beside, not in front. Grace's vows were simple. "You found me in my darkest moment, but you didn't try to fix me. You stood beside me while I fixed myself. You reminded me I was strong enough to survive anything, and now I'm strong enough to love again, to trust again, to choose joy again." They said I do, kissed, became a family, legal, official, real. The reception was joyful, dancing, laughter, celebration, no shadows, no fear. Just people who loved each other gathering to witness love winning. Theo gave a toast. "Grace, you remind us that strength isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up, about fighting when fighting seems impossible, about choosing life when death seems easier. You're the strongest person I know, and I'm honored to call you daughter." Grace cried, happy tears, the kind that heal instead of hurt. 1 year later, Grace's life was unrecognizable. Connor had adopted Emma and Noah. They called him Dada. He was their father in every way that mattered. Bedtime stories, middle of the night comfort, first steps celebrated, a dad who showed up. Grace rebuilt her marketing career, took on bigger clients, built a reputation, made good money, became independent, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. Because independence felt good, felt powerful, felt right. Connor's tech company went public, made hundreds of millions. They donated heavily to domestic violence organizations, built women's shelters, funded legal aid, helped other survivors escape and rebuild, turned their trauma into purpose, into impact, into change. Derek tried one final appeal, claimed wrongful conviction, claimed new evidence, claimed injustice. Every claim was denied, every appeal rejected, every attempt to overturn his sentence failed. He would die in prison, alone, forgotten, a cautionary tale instead of a success story. Grace never thought about him, didn't waste energy on hate, didn't give him space in her head. He was gone, erased, irrelevant, a footnote in her story instead of the whole chapter. 5 years after the freezer, Grace spoke at a domestic violence awareness event, told her story publicly for the first time, shared the details, the horror, the survival, the healing. "I survived because I refused to give up," she told the audience. "But I also survived because people showed up. A doctor who believed me, a detective who investigated, a stranger who paid attention when something felt wrong, and eventually a man who understood that love means standing beside someone, not saving them." She looked out at the crowd, saw women crying, nodding, recognizing themselves in her story, finding hope in her survival. If you're in an abusive relationship, know this: it's not your fault. The cage was built one bar at a time. You didn't see it because you weren't supposed to see it. That's what abusers do. They gaslight, they manipulate, they isolate, they make you doubt reality itself. But you can leave. It's hard, it's scary, it's the most dangerous time. But you can do it, and there are people who will help, who will believe you, who will stand with you while you rebuild. Derek thought cold would kill me. Instead, it forged me into someone who can't be broken. And the man who was supposed to be his enemy became my children's father and my heart's home. Funny how life works. The people who try to destroy you end up giving you the strength to rebuild something even better. The applause was thunderous. Women lined up after to share their stories, to thank her, to say her words gave them courage, gave them hope, gave them permission to leave, to fight, to survive. Grace hugged each one, listened, believed, supported, paid forward the help she'd received. The cycle of trauma could become a cycle of healing, could become a movement, could become change. That evening, Grace came home to chaos. Emma had spilled juice everywhere. Noah had colored on the walls. Connor was trying to cook dinner while managing toddler disasters. It was messy, loud, overwhelming. It was perfect. "Mama!" Emma ran to her. Sticky hands, big smile. "I made picture." Grace looked at the wall. Crayon scribbles, abstract art, the kind that would require repainting. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." Connor kissed her hello. "How was the speech?" "Good, hard, healing. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of me too." They ate dinner together. Family dinner, conversation, laughter, normal. So beautifully, perfectly normal. After the kids were asleep, Grace and Connor sat on the porch. Their ritual, their time, their peace. "What are you thinking?" Connor asked. "That I didn't need saving. I needed someone who believed I was worth standing beside. There's a difference, and I finally know that difference." Connor took her hand. "You're the strongest person I've ever known." "I'm just a woman who refused to dom, who fought for her babies, who chose to rebuild instead of staying broken." "Exactly, strong." Grace smiled, checked her phone. Only once. Progress? The locks. Only once. More progress. The fear. Manageable. Fading. Healing. "Derek wanted to erase me," Grace said quietly. "He wanted me dead and forgotten. Instead, I built a life so full, he doesn't even register as a footnote. That's the greatest revenge. Not hurting him back, but living so well he becomes irrelevant. Connor squeezed her hand. He thought he'd won, thought he'd planned the perfect crime. But he underestimated you, underestimated your will to survive, underestimated how strong you really are. I underestimated me too, until I didn't have a choice, until survival was the only option. Then I discovered strength I didn't know I had. They sat in comfortable silence, stars overhead, kids asleep inside, life continuing, life thriving, life winning. Grace thought about the freezer sometimes, the cold, the pain, the terror. But she didn't live there, didn't let it define her. It was something that happened to her, not something that was her. She was Grace Morrison Hayes, mother, wife, survivor, advocate, business owner, whole person with a full life. Derek was just the villain in chapter 3. She was writing chapter 20 now, and chapter 20 was beautiful. I love you, Connor said. I love you too, and I never thought I'd say that again. Never thought I'd trust anyone enough to love them. But here we are. Here we are. Grace's phone buzzed. Text from Miranda. They'd become friends after the trial. Bonded over shared trauma, supported each other's healing. The text said, just left my abusive boyfriend. Called the shelter you recommended. Thank you for giving me courage. Grace smiled. Typed back, so proud of you. You've got this. Call me if you need anything. The cycle continued. One survivor helping another. One woman's courage inspiring the next. Derek had tried to create victims. Instead, he'd created an army of warriors, women who survived, who healed, who helped others survive and heal. That was his legacy. Not fear, not death, not control, but strength, community, survival, the exact opposite of everything he'd intended. Grace looked at Connor, at her life, at the beautiful mess they'd built together. Thank you, she said. For what? For seeing me when I was invisible, for believing me when everyone doubted, for standing beside me instead of trying to rescue me, for reminding me I was strong enough to save myself. You did save yourself. I just had opened a door. You did more than that. You showed me what love looks like without fear, without control, without condition. You showed me partnership, respect, real love. Connor pulled her close. She let him, leaned into it, accepted comfort without suspicion, accepted love without fear, accepted good things without waiting for the cost. Inside, Emma stirred, made a small sound. Grace's mom instinct kicked in. She stood. I'll check on her. Connor followed. They walked together to the kids' room. Emma was fine, just dreaming. Noah slept peacefully beside her. 2 miracles. 2 reasons Grace fought. 2 reasons she won. Grace adjusted Emma's blanket, kissed Noah's forehead, whispered, Mama loves you. You're safe. You'll always be safe. She meant it, would ensure it, would fight anyone who ever tried to hurt her babies, would be the mother they deserved, the mother who showed up, who protected, who loved without condition. As Grace and Connor walked back to their bedroom, Grace caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. Saw a woman she barely recognized, confident, happy, whole, so different from the broken woman in the freezer, so different from Derek's victim. This woman was a survivor, a warrior, a phoenix risen from frozen ashes. This woman had faced death and won, had faced evil and survived, had faced impossible odds and prevailed. This woman was her, Grace Morrison Hayes, and she was unstoppable. Epilogue. 5 years later. Emma and Noah were 6 years old now. First grade, reading, writing, playing soccer, living normal, beautiful childhood lives. They knew about the freezer. Grace had told them age-appropriate version. Bad man tried to hurt Mama, but Mama fought, and Uncle Connor saved everyone. And now bad man is gone forever. They didn't remember it, had no trauma from it. It was just a story, ancient history, something that happened to other people, the gift of childhood amnesia. Grace was grateful for it every day. She stood backstage at a large conference, 5,000 women in the audience, domestic violence survivors, advocates, lawyers, doctors, social workers, people fighting for change, for justice, for other women still trapped. The moderator introduced her. Grace Morrison Hayes survived attempted murder by her husband, delivered premature twins at -50 degrees, fought for justice and won. Today, she's one of the leading voices in domestic violence advocacy. Please welcome Grace. Grace walked on stage. No nervousness, no fear, just purpose, just mission, just truth. She told her story, the whole thing, the Iwama, the isolation, the freezer, the birth, the survival, the healing, every detail, every moment, every lesson learned. Derek thought he'd won, Grace said to the silent audience. He had the perfect plan, the isolated wife, the insurance money, the empty building, the locked door. Everything was perfect, except one thing. He underestimated me. He saw a victim, weak, controllable, disposable. But I was never weak. I was surviving in an impossible situation. That takes more strength than he could comprehend. And when he pushed me to the edge, when he tried to kill me and my babies, that strength became undeniable. I didn't need rescuing. I needed someone to believe me. I needed someone to open the door. I needed someone to stand with me while I fought my own battle. That's what Connor did. That's what all of you can do. Believe survivors. Support survivors. Stand with survivors. Don't try to save them. Let them save themselves. Just be the one who opens the door. The applause was deafening. Women stood, cheered, cried. Grace felt their connection, their shared pain, their shared strength, their shared victory. After the speech, women lined up. Hundreds of them, each with a story, each with trauma, each with questions about how to survive, how to leave, how to rebuild. Grace listened to everyone, hugged them, gave them resources, gave them hope, gave them proof that survival was possible, that healing was real, that life after abuse could be beautiful. One woman, maybe 60 years old, whispered, "I've been with my husband for 40 years. He's never hit me, but he controls everything. My money, my time, my friends, my family. Is that abuse?" "Yes," Grace said gently. "That's absolutely abuse. You deserve freedom. You deserve autonomy. You deserve a life that's yours. No matter how long you've been there, you can still leave. It's never too late." The woman cried, "I thought I was imagining it. Thought I was ungrateful. Everyone says I'm so lucky. He's successful, provides well, never yells, but I feel trapped." You're not imagining it. Your feelings are valid, and there are people who can help. Let me give you some numbers. Grace provided resources. Watch the woman leave with hope in her eyes. Maybe she'd call, maybe she wouldn't, but she knew now, knew her situation had a name, knew she wasn't alone, knew escape was possible. That was enough. Plant the seed, provide the information. Let survivors make their own choices. Trust their timing, support their journey. Grace drove home that evening. Her home. The house she and Connor bought together. Big backyard, kids' play sets, garden. Everything she'd dreamed of when she was trapped in Derek's controlled world. Connor was cooking dinner. Emma and Noah were doing homework at the kitchen table. Normal. Chaotic. Perfect. "How was the conference?" Connor asked. "Good, hard, important. I met a woman who's been in an abusive marriage for 40 years. Never hit, but completely controlled. She didn't even know it was abuse." Connor's expression darkened. "That's Derek's specialty, the abuse that doesn't leave visible marks. I gave her resources. Hopefully she'll use them. But even if she doesn't, she knows now. She can't unknow it. That's something." Emma looked up from her math homework. "Mama, what's abuse?" Grace sat beside her. How to explain this to a 6-year-old? It's when someone hurts another person, with words or actions, when someone makes another person feel scared or small or trapped. Like when Noah takes my toys? Grace smiled. That's not quite the same. That's siblings being siblings. Abuse is bigger, more serious, more harmful. Did someone abuse you, Mama? Grace chose her words carefully. A long time ago, yes, but I got away, and now I help other people get away too. I make sure other mamas and kids are safe. Emma considered this. You're brave, Mama. Thank you, baby. So are you. That night, after kids were asleep and house was quiet, Grace and Connor sat on their upper porch. Their tradition, their time, their peace. What are you thinking, Connor asked. Grace smiled. Same question, different answer every time. That I'm happy, genuinely, completely happy. Derek tried to destroy me. Instead, he freed me, forced me to discover strength I didn't know I had, pushed me into a life I never would have chosen but can't imagine living without. You think you would have left eventually, without the freezer? Grace considered. I don't know, maybe. Or maybe I would have stayed, made excuses, convinced myself it wasn't that bad. The freezer was horrific, but it was also clear, undeniable. No more ambiguity, no more gaslighting, just truth. He tried to kill me. I couldn't rationalize that away. Some women do, rationalize even murder attempts. I know, I might have been one of them. But the babies, I couldn't rationalize risking them. Maternal instinct overrode everything else, even survival instinct. I fought harder for them than I ever would have fought for myself. And now? No, I fight for me too, because I matter, because I deserve good things, because surviving isn't enough. I want to thrive, and I am thriving. Connor kissed her forehead. Yes, you are. Grace checked her phone. Habit, but only once. The fear was mostly gone. The hypervigilance had faded. The trauma was healing. Slowly, steadily, surely. I never thought I'd be here, Grace said quietly, sitting on a porch with someone who actually loves me, with kids who are safe and happy, with a life that doesn't hurt. I thought Derek destroyed that possibility. But he didn't. He just delayed it. He tried to write your ending, but you took the pen back, wrote your own story. We wrote it together, you, Rachel, Dr. Matthews, Theo, Detective Friedman, Miranda, everyone who showed up, everyone who believed, everyone who fought alongside me. It's our story, our victory. But you did the hard part. You survived, you fought, you healed. We just cheered you on. Grace leaned into him, felt safe, felt loved, felt home. Derek thought cold would kill me. Instead, it forged me into someone who can't be broken. And the man who was supposed to be his enemy became my children's father and my heart's home. Best revenge story ever. Grace laughed. It's not revenge. Revenge would mean I still cared what Derek thinks. I don't. He's irrelevant. This is just life. Good life. The life I always deserved but didn't know how to claim until I had no choice. The life you fought for. The life you earned. The life we built. Together. You and me and Emma and Noah. Our family, our story, our happy ending. Except it wasn't an ending. It was a middle. A continuation. A life still being lived. Still being written. Still full of possibility and hope and joy. Grace Morrison Hayes was 6 years out from the freezer. 6 years out from attempted murder. 6 years into healing. 6 years into thriving. 6 years into proof that survival is possible. That healing is real. That life after trauma can be beautiful. She was a mother, a wife, an advocate, a survivor, a warrior, a whole, complete, imperfect, beautiful human being. And she was happy. Actually, genuinely, completely happy. Derek Bennett was serving 3 consecutive life sentences in maximum security prison. No possibility of parole, no contact with his children, no legacy except as a cautionary tale. He would die in prison, alone. Forgotten. His name synonymous with evil. Grace Morrison Hayes would live free, would love freely, would thrive abundantly. Her name would be synonymous with strength, with survival, with the indomitable human spirit that refuses to be broken no matter how hard someone tries to break it. That was the real story, not the freezer, not the attempted murder, not the trauma, but the healing, the rebuilding, the triumph of hope over horror, the victory of life over death. The undeniable truth that monsters don't win, survivors do. And Grace Morrison Hayes was the ultimate survivor. Grace's story proves that survival is possible, that healing is real, that monsters don't always win. If her story moved you, inspired you, or gave you hope, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your own experiences, your journey from darkness to light. And if you believe stories like Grace's need to be told, that survivors need to be heard, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Because every week, we share stories of ordinary people who survived extraordinary circumstances. Stories of courage, of justice, of hope. You never know whose life you might change by sharing this video. Your share could be the moment someone realizes they're not alone, that escape is possible, that their story doesn't end with their abuser. Grace didn't need saving. She needed someone to believe her. Be that person for someone in your life and join our community of survivors and supporters by subscribing below. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for being part of Grace's journey from victim to victor. See you in the next story.